In September 2025, something big happened in Singapore. It was the Asia-Pacific Petroleum Conference, one of the most important energy gatherings in the region. Senior executives, traders, and analysts from across Asia were there. But the surprising part wasn't the location, nor the guest list. It was the question. A single question dominated almost every discussion, panel, and side meeting. Why is China suddenly buying enormous amounts of oil, far more than it actually needs? Why is the world's largest crude importer purchasing oil it doesn't technically require? This is the million-dollar question shaking global energy markets right now. Nobody has a confident answer. China is deliberately hiding its intentions, refusing to explain the strategy behind these massive purchases. The only confirmed fact is this: China's crude oil inventories are rising at an extremely fast pace. But rising by how much? No one knows. China never publishes its strategic reserve numbers. And no one knows when China will stop buying. Executives and traders are obsessed with these questions because China's extraordinary demand this year is one of the main reasons oil prices have not collapsed to $50 per barrel, even though the world is clearly oversupplied. The moment China stops buying aggressively, that's the moment oil prices could fall sharply. And that moment will likely be exactly when China finishes filling its storage sites. So to understand when China might stop buying, we first need to understand why it is buying in the first place. Does China's behavior reflect coincidence? Or is it part of a much bigger preparation, a plan linked to a possible military conflict with the United States over Taiwan? That's what we're exploring today. A few months after Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, a special Chinese working group was formed. It included officials from multiple government agencies. Their job? To study Western sanctions on Russia, carefully, continuously, and to submit regular reports to China's political leadership. According to the Wall Street Journal, sources familiar with the working group say its goal was simple: learn exactly how the West punishes countries and prepare China for the day it might face similar sanctions if conflict erupts over Taiwan. Chinese officials have been traveling to Moscow regularly to meet Russia's central bank, Ministry of Finance, and other institutions to understand how Russia is handling sanctions. And China has good reason to worry. The sanctions America used against Russia were unprecedented in both scale and force. If Washington ever applied similar measures to China, the consequences would be catastrophic for a country so deeply dependent on global trade. One example is, the US pressured the world to avoid buying Russian energy, the main source of revenue for the Russian budget. The US can do that easily because it controls the global financial system dominated by the US dollar. America could use the same system against China, but in reverse. China doesn't export energy, it imports it. It is the world's largest importer of both crude oil and natural gas. Over 70% of China's oil and 40% of its natural gas is imported. In theory, the US could threaten countries with sanctions if they sell oil or gas to China. Would the whole world obey? No. Just like not everyone obeyed the Russian sanctions. But the effect would still be huge. Any seller willing to risk US punishment would demand a premium price from China, the same way Russia is now forced to sell oil at a discount. But America has an even more dangerous tool. Economic sanctions are one thing, and naval blockade is another. This is the scenario Beijing fears the most. In 2024, during discussions in the US Congress about the National Defense Authorization Act for 2025, Republican Congressman Ronnie Jackson proposed an amendment requiring the Pentagon to conduct a study on the feasibility of imposing one or more naval blockades on China to prevent shipments of fossil fuels from reaching its ports in the event of a military conflict. The Pentagon would have to deliver the study within 180 days of Trump signing the act, with a public version and potentially a secret annex. The amendment was approved initially and then removed from the final version.
It wasn't the first time this happened. In 2023, whilst discussing the defense bill for 2024, Jackson proposed the same amendment. Democrats rejected it, calling it an unnecessary provocation. Jackson defended himself, saying he was not calling for war with China, but one of the best ways to weaken the Chinese military is to deny it the energy it needs. Republicans agreed. Democrats argued that the US military already studies these scenarios privately, so no public study was needed. But even though the US hides its real plans, it openly tracks China's energy vulnerabilities. In its October 2023 report, Military and Security Developments Involving the People's Republic of China, the Pentagon highlighted a critical fact. Around 62% of China's crude oil and 17% of its natural gas imports pass through the South China Sea and the Strait of Malacca. The Strait of Malacca is one of China's greatest strategic weaknesses. If the strait were closed, China's economy would suffer enormous damage. China has known this for years. In 2003, the President Hu Jintao famously warned that some major powers are trying to control navigation through the Strait of Malacca, clearly referring to the United States. President Xi Jinping has been working on two parallel strategies to protect China's energy security. Track 1. Build a navy strong enough to break any blockade. China now has the largest navy in the world by number of ships, thanks to the industrial capacity more than 200 times greater than America's in shipbuilding. The US Navy is still more technologically advanced, but China's ability to build and replace ships rapidly gives it a powerful advantage. Rand warned the US in June 2024, the United States should not assume it can impose a distant blockade on China without opposition. Track 2. Diversify energy supplies and build huge strategic reserves. Xi Jinping's message has been consistent. China must control its energy supplies lines and hold their initiative in its own hands. That includes diversifying suppliers, building alternative transport routes, investing massively in domestic production, and most importantly, creating enormous strategic oil reserves. During a visit to the Shanghai oil field in 2021, Xi told workers, China is now the world's largest industrial nation. With unprecedented global changes, we must take energy security extremely seriously. He's right to worry. A study by US commerce official Paul Dabar, January 2023, warned if China lost access to all seaborne oil and gas imports, its economy would shrink by 17%. China has responded aggressively. It built the world's largest EV industry to reduce petrol demand, increased domestic oil production by 13% between 2018 and 2024, but despite all this, it's buying more crude than ever. In the first 9 months of 2025, China imported over 11 million barrels per day. According to the Wall Street Journal, China has been storing 1 to 1.2 million barrels per day from these imports. China has two types of reserves. Strategic Petroleum Reserves, known as SPR, commercial reserves. The exact size is secret. Estimates range from 800 million to 1.4 billion barrels. But analysts believe China's real goal is far higher. A total storage capacity of 2 billion barrels, even enough for 180 days of import. Reuters reported in October that states firms like Sinopec and CNOOC plan to add at least 169 million barrels of storage across 11 sites between 2025 and 2026. So far, they've added about 37 billion barrels. This means China will keep buying crude significantly above its needs for years. Good for global oil companies. Terrifying for governments watching China's strategic behavior, especially the United States. Why is China buying so much? Two theories. Today, two main explanations exist. Theory 1, simple economics. China is taking advantage of low oil prices. Brent around $64, WTI around $60. Stocking up while it's cheap. Theory 2, preparation for war. China may be building reserves at historic pace because it expects a conflict with the US over Taiwan, a conflict where energy becomes a weapon. Far more aggressively than what happened with Russia, which leads to the final question. Would China prefer war during Trump's term or after? This is the question of the episode. Is it China's interest to engage in a Taiwan conflict now during Trump's presidency? Or wait until later when it has even greater reserves and when America may be dealing with its own crises? If you are in Xi Jinping's position, what would you do? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.